If you're in the pre-stream, welcome. Um, I have an unfortunate announcement that Koji is not going to be here today, so I'm going to be holding it down all on my own, which shouldn't be a huge problem because I mean I've been holding it down on my own with the kids for a while, but we'll see. We've got some interesting things to talk about today. I'm really excited to go over this, and of course, we will still be taking your questions live. At this point, I'm thinking I'm thinking that we make it a little bit more fun. I won't be in a private chat room since it's just me, and y'all can ask questions over voice if that's something that you'd want. If you can't do that, feel free to still sit in here and listen. Um, if you could still sit in on the stream and contribute viewers, even if you're in the Discord listening to it, that'd be fine, or that'd be great. But thank you for coming by, and we'll be starting in about 5 minutes. Oh, yeah. Sorry about the typing, everyone. All right. I have undone the pings, so you're not going to hear my 50 trillion Discord notifications. So that's good. And we've got 3 minutes to start. If you've got any last minute suggestions or things that you would like to hear, let me know. I can't guarantee that they will be talked about on the stream, but it's always good to have stuff like that. Make sure that you're putting them in the Discord as well. I have a ongoing list of topics that I want to go over. So yeah. Also, if you didn't see the announcement, we're going to be having people taking notes live. But if you are planning on taking notes anyway, if you could send it to me through Discord afterward, I'd be very grateful. I just want to see generally what information y'all think is important, so that I can create better documents for you. The plan for this format for the seminars is that this viewed portion will always be free. Eventually, instead of having something like a Patreon with like weird extra stuff, It's mostly going to just be like materials and things that you can do to check your own work, to make sure that like you're doing everything you can to get ahead. And that's related to the topic that we're talking about that week. So that'll be fun to put together. But yeah, thank y'all for coming. We have one more minute. All right, welcome everyone to the stream. I hope that you like this really poorly done drawing that I put together here. Just realizing that I forgot to give him ears. Let's give him an ear there. A little bit of an ear there too. Ta-da! Now he has ears. Alrighty. And yeah, give him long earlobes. We'll give him a little bit of an earring there. We'll give him a nose piercing, a lip piercing. There you go. All right. Enough of wasting your time. It is 9 p.m. Welcome to the first academic esports seminar. Please, please, if you have any better ideas for the name, let me know. I'm going to be hopping in to the academic esports chats live Discord. And I'll be pulling you in. Yeah, it's 9 p.m. right now at DC time. Yes, you're more than allowed to use the restroom at any time. There will be a VOD. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but there will be a VOD after this. It is being recorded. So feel free if you do need to relieve yourselves. You're more than open to that. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about three things. Two of them are lumped into effective management tips, and the third one is really how to start an esports career and what it takes to get there. I don't think I have links enabled on Twitch chat. Let us see. Alrighty. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was a question from Matt. So Matt, if you're currently in the Discord, or you're watching live and you can be in the Discord, let me know and I'll pull you into our live chat right here. But basically, the question that you had asked was going over you had problems with finding the right team captain and like how lenient you can be with your team. And I really believe that that's a strong question, not only for managing, a competitive esports team, especially like on the collegiate or the high school level, but also just as anyone who's going to be doing management. Leniency and making sure that people are doing what they need to is fine. All right, Matt. If you have any extra context you want to be discussed or added to that question, type it in Twitch chat, and we'll start at it right after you respond. In the meantime, Mr. Mans is going to be killed. Luckily, I didn't name him, so it's not too sad. All right, let me find the exact question. All right, so the exact question was balancing stringency and leniency in team management. Now, basically what we're going to be talking about here. Wait, what happened? I'm seeing F's and Peppa hands. We all right in here? Just making sure. All right. I know there's a little bit of a delay. I killed him. Uh-oh. I'm very. Oh, I. Good lord, I'm retarded. Okay, so the question is about leniency in leadership, and this can be really difficult when you're running student organizations, right? So I'm going to be creating a Venn diagram here. So bear with me for a second. I know it's such a beautiful Venn diagram, correct? If I can move it. There we go. Cool. So on the left side, we're going to put student slash volunteer initiatives. And then we'll put paid initiatives. So yeah, the question that we have here is how lenient can you be? And the reason we have a Venn diagram here is because it really varies depending on where you are and what you're doing. So if the people that you're working with, your coworkers, your boss, are volunteers, everyone is a volunteer, then your options are really limited in how you can quote unquote punish someone, because really all they're doing is putting in free work to your organization, and they're not really getting anything out of it except enjoyment. And you really kind of need those hands most times, so there could be an issue with it. But one of the most important things you need to realize is just because they're a helpful person doesn't mean that bad behavior, like consistently being late or having issues with other people on your team, isn't a huge problem that needs to be addressed. And if that means that you have to take away privileges, that's one of the ways that you can quote unquote punish people who have made general mistakes when working within the organization. You can also separate or give them time away from the project, because in the end they're spending their time on this because it's something that's important to them. And if you're managing the project or something along those lines, you're managing a team where you're trying to succeed and everyone is working towards that goal. If you're not going to adequately punish someone just because they're good, it makes them feel like they can get away with more. And I know this is a question, let me put, it's leniency in leadership. And how can you punish? So, in a student or volunteer initiative, you really can't get into that mindset of, I really need them, whatever. Sometimes you need to make that sacrifice for the good of the team that you're putting together. That's just how it is. With paid initiatives, that changes. Obviously, same way of like giving them time off or telling them to go home is, I don't want to say docking pay, but reducing paid opportunities. So in like a contracting relationship, obviously someone who's making trouble, even though they're really good, you can start reducing paid opportunities. And a paid initiative also, you can start giving harder or more menial work. And that's something that you can do with student or volunteer initiatives too. We might end up bringing that into the middle. But what this really means is, they're being paid. A way to punish them is start taking away responsibilities. Responsibilities and privileges are different here. The biggest difference right here is, if they're responsible for a project that they really care about, but they're constantly getting in fights or constantly late or constantly disobeying orders, then you're going to need to start giving harder, more menial work. And then in the middle here, I would say the biggest thing that you need to do, no matter what, is like have a serious talk. And I know that this doesn't seem like a punishment whatsoever, but you're working with a volunteer team. You're a leader. The people under you, especially in a volunteer initiative or a paid initiative, especially in esports, are looking up to you. That's something that took me a really long time to understand, was that people were looking up to me, because at the time I was still a kid running an organization. To some extent, that's still true, but what you really need to realize is when you're in that position of leadership and you're doing a good job, you're setting an example for these people. And if they want to be in your spot, the best thing that they can do is emulate you. So make sure that, if there's a problem, have a serious talk with them. I don't get like irrationally angry. Don't have an outburst at the person if they're causing trouble and stuff like that. Just try to figure out where the problem is. A lot of times, like your question, Matt, was between leniency and how hard you can be on, your players in this case. And I'll be reading your example in a minute. But what it comes down to is more of understanding your team member's position, the reason why they're acting out, and whether or not the reason they're acting out is something that you can like come to terms with and fix. Because sometimes it really sucks, but like say you have a team and one of your team members is acting out because he doesn't feel like the other people on your team are competitive enough, right? Like that's not something that you can fix in terms of team culture quickly, and it's becoming a problem where all of your other team members want to quit. Now, the thing is that singular person is bringing up the level of your team quite a bit, but if you keep them on the team for much longer, everyone else is going to quit and there won't be a team in the first place. So in the end, what may come to grow is the fact that you need to remove that person as soon as possible, and every second you wait is a potential for you to no longer have a team that you're managing. And that's something really important to think about, is if you didn't have that serious talk with them, if you didn't figure out their motivations behind acting out and things like that, you would have never known that, and it might be too late by the time you figure it out. So that's always the first thing you should do, and remember that is a punishment in and of itself. Like people will be embarrassed that they have to have a talk like that. Tail between their legs, whatever. There's some people are super headstrong, but in the end, you're in a position of power, however much or little power that position holds, and you do have some leeway there. All right. So let's read this example. He says, in the beginning, our secondary team never actually played the game outside of scrims and tournament matches, when in actuality, the scrims should be used for practicing as a team. To help remedy that, I created a requirement for them to play 5 ranked matches per week, and every match they miss, they make up for in a volunteer hour towards the club. Okay. So what you're saying is like, should there be weeks where that's okay that they miss their 5 matches? I think that the volunteer hour is like way too strict for like every match they miss. I think all in all, like, okay, you missed your entire week. Now you have to do 5 volunteer hours towards the club. That's a little crazy. Um, on the other hand, I don't think it's too crazy. I think that's if your players are up for it and you have enough time and space in your organization to run that, it's definitely something you can do. Something you should be thinking about here is sometimes players will have things that come up, especially students will have things that come up that just make it not possible for them to do those 5 ranked matches. So make sure that you have sort of a line or a boundary where missing those matches is fine, and a line or a boundary where missing those matches is not fine. If there is no boundary, that's cool too. So long as your team is willing to accept, well, hey, 5 volunteer hours is something that I can do anyway. Whatever, it's no big deal. But remember, finals, academics, and family stuff should always be coming first before team stuff. So if they don't have their academics and family in check or some emergency comes along, they shouldn't be beholden to your team rules. That's my personal opinion, but if you run it an other way where, your family comes second or, your academics come second, you're going to have a hard time keeping people within your team. So that's my general answer. I'm going to be taking any secondary questions in the Twitch chat. What do you mean? Okay, let's see. Of course. So if it's them not planning ahead, then there's an issue. But on the other hand, um, remember that your practices weekly are taking a lot of time for an exam. So imagine they have work, they have your team, and they have family. And what comes around is that, they might have an exam that they knew about for at least 2 weeks. But when it came down to it, in the end, they just had no time to study. Um, Work with them to make sure that you can schedule that in advance. That's generally the answer here is don't go too incredibly deep with your team members if they're not comfortable with it, but get a general idea of their personal lives. What their commitments are, what their family life is like. Is that something that's really important to them? How are their academics? Are they having a really hard semester right now? Stuff like that is really important. And I see this really great comment here by Mr. Clark about building a community. And he's absolutely right here. If your people feel like you absolutely care about them, they'll go above and beyond. One of my soft rules of management is that a strong organizational system should help ordinary people do extraordinary work. And that's absolutely one of the ways that you can achieve that is that if you truly believe in your people will believe in you and put out the work to reflect that. Yeah, I think that so Alethea here says that her problem is that people aren't generally telling the team captain that they're not going to be at a practice or a match ahead of time and say something an hour before. One of the things that is easily looked over most of the time when planning out these management especially systems, especially for teams, is that if you don't have a established form of communication, and I don't mean that as a Discord server or just DM me or something like that. Just a say a schedules channel or a practice channel or something like that where it's a culture of people saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to make it," and everyone can't see that, then it's going to be harder to get that ingrained into them. Like, say, you're on a team and you see everyone is giving like a week in advance notice that they're not going to make it to something. Make sure that you're actually showing everyone, showing off that culture instead of keeping it hidden in private DMs. Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay. It's hard to change that kind of culture. How much time do you spend outside of esports building relationships with the players? Um, I'd say so specifically for the time that you spend outside of esports building relationships. One of the easiest ways that I've done it in the past, with multiple types of teams, um, both like professional players and then also like management teams, is doing team lunches or team dinners and like just entertainment nights where we go out to like mini golf or the arcade or something like that, because generally when you're talking with them in a situation like that, they get more comfortable, especially like once one person opens up, everyone will start opening up more. But that also requires you to be vulnerable. Now, I know that when you're a teacher or a coach, that's a lot harder to do something along those lines. What I'd really encourage in that case is to just have like one on ones with your upper management folks, either that being like a team captain or a team lead, or doing a one on one with each of the individual players if that's feasible for you. To just talk about, how they're doing with their family, how their home life is, how their academics are, how they're feeling right now, because just spending a little bit of time, maybe you just call it like a 15-minute self like checkup one on one. You'll be able to snuff out these issues before they become catastrophic. So let's see. We use a WhatsApp for telling coach slash everyone that we won't be there. Absolutely, yes, do that. And make sure that you have an established line at which calling something is like late is going to be a problem. Um, so there's a philosophy of like, say, you come in late, like 5 minutes, you get docked an hour of time. Uh, you're never going to come in 5 minutes late. You'll always come in an hour late. That same principle works with what we're talking here. So make sure that the line that you draw is still reasonable, especially with your punishment, etc. But yeah, just do everything that you can to positively influence the culture to make sure that people are really just communicating their schedules as soon as advanced as they can. So let's see, one more. Junk food runs are one of my favorite things to do with the teams. Head to Whataburger one or two times a week at midnight. Yep, anything like that. That sort of team bonding is something that'll keep you together through some of the bigger hardships that you can go through with the team. But yeah, I'll take two more questions or comments in the Twitch chat, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is choosing capable. Oh, Koji canceled last minute. He's kind of sick right now. He's kind of really sick right now. One second, let me see if I can fix that. I did prepare something, and I guess I just didn't do it. There you go. Ta-da! Koji has been de-advertised. He's been deleted. All right. Okay. Is it okay to get input from teammates on executive decisions like punishment for another player? Um, in in a case where you're starting like you have to punish another player, um, there's two lines of thought, right? So the first line of thought is, a democratic decision will end up feeling more fair. But on the other hand, teammates who like another player are going to generally vote against punishment for that player most of the time. So I would suggest that you just run your own executive decisions, or if you have like a management team or mentors that you can confide in, you have those venues. That being said, the Academic Esports Chats Discord is actually a good place if you ever have a question about something like that. If you have like a punishment for another player that you're debating, that would be a really good place to share that and have it commented on if you can post the context behind it. But yeah. All right, we're going to be going on to our next question, which was actually also from Matt. I'm sorry, everyone else, but Matt had another great question here. Scouting and determining the abilities of team coaches for a team. And then we have Zenax Silversteel. I don't know if you're in here, but if you are, welcome to the chat. Talking about team conflict resolution and how to determine effective team leaders. So the two things that I want to talk about, and eventually on one of these, we're actually going to have Coach Leviathan in here, who actually coached professional EULCS teams. So that'll be really fun, and I'll have him talk more on this. But there's something that I really want to talk about with effective team leaders and team coaches, okay? So when you're hiring a team leader, or a team coach, instinctually, you're going to want someone who's good at the subject matter, right? So, one second. I'm going to pull back this. We're going to delete the Venn diagram. And we're going to be talking about, all right, choosing a team leader / coach. All right, so when you're talking about choosing a team leader, the initial thought is to get someone good at the subject matter. So like say you're looking for a League of Legends coach, right? The first thing that you're going to be thinking about is like, oh man, we need someone who's really, really good at League of Legends because they're going to know all the strategies and they're going to be building all this up. And okay, let's be real for a second. All of us, or most of us here aren't UC Irvine. Most of us here aren't top tier, programs, etc., where we're going to have 20 or 30 top level players. The idea is when you're choosing a team leader or coach, you need someone who's the answer is to get someone who's really good at personal skills. Get someone who is good at interpersonal and leadership. Interpersonal relationships and leadership. All right, and the reason that we're talking about this here is because, like I said, the initial thought is to get, the best League of Legends player, and there's a place for those. You can generally hire in people who are really good at League of Legends to start helping coach your team, whatever. But the better thing that you can do is find someone who's developing or already developed at a leader at your university or your high school and really get them acquainted with the team and just making sure that they're keeping up with everyone and making sure they improve. and keeping them accountable. One of the easiest things to do is to not keep your team members accountable because things just slip through the cracks. You've got your own life, you've got a lot of things to be working on, and once in a while, one or two things will just slip through. So make sure that you have someone keeping track of the players individually, making sure that they're keeping track of the week to week progress or the month to month progress of the players as well. Because not only is that good for you to be looking at and for the next manager or whatever to be looking at, but it's also good for you to have a general idea of like the growth path of your team members and seeing how they improve. Because if you can target those out, you're going to end up being able to support them better overall. Um, when choosing a coach for a more formalized program, um, what you really need to be looking for is someone who commands respect. They're not unsure with what they're saying. You don't want a coach that constantly says or like I do. I know I have a problem with that, but you want someone who's got a good base of knowledge, speaks with authority. Those are really important traits of leaders as well. Um, you also want to make sure that if you're actually paying for a professional coach, it's not someone who's just very good at the game. It's someone who knows how to convey information about the game, because it doesn't really matter whether or not they can get to Masters or Grandmasters or Challenger for you. What really matters is whether or not they can convey those concepts to your players and make sure that they get better. So those are the overall things that you want to be looking at. Specifically, something that I see a lot of colleges miss is the fact that you can buy coaching, like quote unquote one-on-one coaching for your players from like top people. If you reach out to them and just like say, hey, would you be interested in coaching my collegiate team? We'll pay for your time, whatever. You can actually get pretty inexpensive full team coaching like on a week to week basis that you can budget in from just selling a little bit of merchandise or doing fundraisers, whatever. And your team will be a lot better for it. I think you'll take a lot more from it, so long as you can interview and find the right coach. So yeah, I'll start taking questions or comments now. All right, I'm not seeing any questions or comments right now, so I'm just going to move on. If I see anything, we'll end up moving back to it, but for now, it is what it is. Oh, let me see if I can grab this and move this back. There we go. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is how to start an esports career. One of the biggest questions. Oh, let's see. How should/would I go about removing someone from a position of power, such as a captain or a shot caller? Um, well, the first thing that you want to do when dealing with someone that you think you're going to have to remove, um, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you're talking with them over time. Um, yeah, definitely be careful with coach quality. You have to make sure that you're talking with them about their problems over time and establishing a general, like, okay, you didn't do the right thing this time. This is the problem. Please fix it. And then, like, you go back and you have that conversation with them again when there's a mistake. Like, on the third time at that point, you've given them 2 warnings. They should be pretty accepting, I want to say accepting, but pretty okay with you removing them from that position. If there's something completely unacceptable that they did, then you can instantly remove them from that position and there won't be much backlash. But if there's been a long-standing issue and you haven't been addressing it with the person, but you think they generally know, um, oh yeah, if you have players, hey, okay, so there's a that adds extra context. I'm gonna finish the thought real quick. If you do have someone who's been continually a problem, but you haven't talked to them about their attitude or whatever being a problem, and then you suddenly fire them because of something that's like not mission critical, then there's a problem. You're going to have backlash from removing that person. So if you have a person on the team that is so toxic that players are threatening to leave or actually leaving if you do not remove that person, and the reason that the players are threatening to leave is like valid, like the team captain or whatever that is causing everyone to leave is like racist or just like really inappropriate or constantly late and things like that, then at that point you should have the grounds to remove them. Generally, I would say please establish some sort of dialogue with that person before you remove them. And if you haven't, that means that there was a problem kind of upper in the chain of communications, somewhere in the chain of communications that you didn't realize that there was a problem already. But yeah, make sure that you're establishing that dialogue, even if there is a problem like that, because if you don't, there's going to be backlash, at least from the person, sometimes from other people, if you just remove them without any warning. All right. Nick Clark says his advice is to coach people for success. If they don't respond to coaching, then start escalating consequences. He's had the same situation. They had a powwow with the offender. Thankfully, he decided to change his ways after being confronted by him and some of his teammates. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, establish that dialogue. Bringing in teammates, especially in a situation like this, is a fantastic idea. Um, because that's his peers. So not only is he being judged based on hearsay in his mind, he's also got the people on his team that's going to be directly affecting him, and maybe causing him to rethink or change his ways. It's something that I've had to deal with in the past as well. It ended up breaking off an entire division of our organization. We used to have a Splatoon 2 team, and the person who was managing the team, none of the other teammates would manage the team, but the person that was managing the team was an absolute asshole. He was very good at the game. He was very passionate about managing it, but if anyone performed like slightly out of step, he'd just get all onto them, and that type of toxic leadership is something you can't allow, no matter how good or whatever the person is, because it'll just destroy whatever division you're working under. Something that I thought was really interesting, some research that you might like, is that teams with a toxic overachiever perform like 40% worse than teams with like a general like worse group of people or like less competent people, because that toxic offender is going to make the work environment so hard to push on in that people won't be as motivated to improve themselves or continue doing good work. But yeah, generally you try to cut that person out. So yeah, have that discussion with them, talk with them with the teammates, and then move forward from there. All right, let's see. Anything else? Oh yeah, you had said, um, Hippogriff said that some programs that offer coaches are trash, especially since the esports scene is blowing up right now. I would specifically, um, talk uh, to the individual coaches that you're looking at, or go through some collegiate groups to see if you can get any recommendations from other teams that have done the same thing in the past, and do interviews with the coaches. If you have a good recurring opportunity for them, they'll be more than willing to go through that interview process. All right. Okay, we'll give y'all another second for any more questions or comments. Also, like the comment here, do not rush to remove them if they can be fixed. In the end, once a situation has gotten to a point where people have already started leaving the team because of a singular person, I think that that's beyond fixing. Again, with problems like that in the past, it's really hard to like regain respect from people who are good team members on the team previously if you try to move forward with the person that was so toxic that they ended up leaving the team because of them. But if you can appropriately work with the individuals that have left and the person, and everything falls into place, it is still possible to fix that. I love the point that Matt just brought up, that mood is infectious. This is something when you're a team leader, it's really easy when you have bad days to start just being a little bit apathetic or unhappy, especially like after wins and things like that. I know you watch any sports movies or whatever, and they get these like super like either super like it's okay bud, you'll get him next time, or like a very angry coach at the players. But in the real world, what it comes down to is like trying to keep as good of a positive attitude that's still constructive. It can be, you can be criticizing others but still constructive, and saying, being optimistic. That optimism is going to rub off on your team, and having optimism run off on your team, get that just general feeling and culture running through the team of picking each other up, you're going to be doing a lot better in the long run. All right, we'll be taking one more comment before we're moving on to the final topic of the night. Absolutely. So, Nick Clark says building a secondary program is one of his side goals, to teach kids how to work with one another, and he's had to remove a few. So, one of the biggest things that you'll find is even in collegiate or professional esports industries, toxicity is something that is just so prevalent within the culture, especially the competitive culture, that it's something you're going to have to deal with anywhere. The best thing that you can do is do spot culture checks on anyone that's kind of showing that behavior. And if they don't end up seeing improvements over time, having more serious discussions with them, and then that can eventually cause removal. There's also the chance that by you pointing it out, they're going to instantly escalate the problem. Um, that's happened a lot, where it's like, what, you don't allow toxicity in this organization, then I'm out. And you've got to realize that sometimes that's fine. Um, it might not seem like it, but you are also in direct competition with all of their friend groups and stuff like that as well, and all the other activities that they can do. So if the only way that they want to be playing esports is by being toxic while doing it, then sometimes that's just how it works. That doesn't mean that you can still allow them and your team to ruin your culture. All right, so the last thing that we are going to be talking about today, and thank y'all so much for being good sports and contributing here. I really appreciate it. Um, the initial viewership here, I'm really excited about. This is going to be a lot of fun moving forward, and we're going to have bigger and better guests coming in. But we're going to be talking about starting an esports career, and then we're just going to put a big how. So some of the things we're going to be talking about is volunteering, um, self-starting, and adjacent growth. All right, fantastic. So between these three pieces, volunteering, self-starting, and adjacent growth, you should be able to build your own esports career. Now, y'all being in this chat and already running programs or being a part of programs is really good. But that doesn't mean that you have like the required skills or the marketability as a person to start going out and getting esports jobs, because while esports is growing, there's still a limited number of positions in your area unless you're in like Southern California. So there's probably going to be a problem, or an Overwatch League team in your area. That's probably a good way. But the most common ways that I've seen for people to get into the industry, and then of course, my friends and people that I've talked to in the industry, and myself as well, is volunteering. And this can be going to your local fighting game scene and start helping them market the event, or setting up the streams and doing the audio quality, or just helping out in the back and organizing the tournament, or start commentating on matches and stuff like that. Like, your amateur scenes are a fantastic place to start getting that experience, and start documenting your progress forward, because that experience is going to matter a lot to your future employer. Also, esports loves esports. So what that means is, if you've been volunteering at like local scenes and stuff like that, and you're also doing the other two, the self-starting position and adjacent growth, and you're going against someone who only did one of the other two, or the other two, you're going to be much better off, because that like culture bomb of like having built up a local scene runs really deep. Grassroots still runs really deep within esports. The next thing is self-starting. Starting your own initiative. That can be running your own esports organization, or running your own team, or making your own events, whether that's online or offline, or streaming and doing shoutcasting online or in person, or starting to do like group meetups, or marketing, building your own like pages and content, doing esports journalism and writing on your own. All of those are self-starting pieces where you're really just kind of jumping into a new area and trying to learn not only the skill, the trade there, but you're also learning the business behind it. That type of overall knowledge is really needed in the industry right now. It's not really possible for most companies to be hiring direct specialists in 30 or 40 different disciplines. So one of the biggest things that people are looking for is all-rounders, or people who are just generally knowledgeable about the scene and can just jump into a position and start hammering down nails and being able to get things up and running, however scrappy it may be. So yeah, that's definitely a really important thing to do if you're trying to get into an esports career. The third thing, which I'd say is probably the most important of the three things, is adjacent growth. So I've been seeing a lot of schools starting to tout esports minors and esports majors. And then, of course, there's like esports certificates. I think esports certificates are fine. But with minors or majors, those are never going to beat out a classical education or degree. And what I mean by that is like it doesn't have to be a degree. You can have mentors. That's kind of the path that I went. You can, start learning on your own, do a lot of online tutorials and videos and testing management techniques, or you can be going through classes in a traditional discipline and then start using, volunteering or self-starting to use those disciplines and build them into esports. But the fact of the matter is you can volunteer and self-start all you want, but if you don't have any formal education in what you're going to be doing, you're going to be at the bottom of the list because what it comes down to is, uh, these companies need you to be doing real work, and they really, most of the time, they don't have time to train you up to the basic level. So you need to at least get there. Once you get to the basic level, which is basically what college prepares you for, they'll take the reins from there. But yeah, make sure that you do that. As much as I still hate to see, and if Koji was here, he would ream me for this. As much as I hate to see volunteer positions for like larger companies like Fnatic and things like that, especially like in the marketing field, that's a really quick way to start to get references and jobs. A lot of these companies will use those volunteer positions as a way to get free work out of you and vet you for 3 to 6 months, and then just buy you out and take you onto the team if you do a great job. I know that's what Infinite Esports did with everyone that wasn't Mr. Andrews. I know that a lot of other esports companies do that. It's just kind of the culture right now. Yeah, Josh right here is promoting, thank you, Endgame Summit. Endgame Summit last year, I was the sponsorship manager for. We ended up getting some crazy companies to come out and support us, like South by Southwest and HyperX, and Riot actually supported, and Microsoft. So that was cool. That experience ended up landing me a lot of interviews that I probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. It also gave me kind of more of an executive look, so I'd say that that was very helpful. The Endgame Summit is currently looking for people to fill positions. Alethea, if you can go to the website and link the job or like the job description form from the Endgame site and Discord. They are all volunteer positions, but I assure you, the people in the company, it's hardly even a startup. It's just really something that's very grassroots and built from the ground up for something that we all love. So if you're interested in getting a position in esports and just trying out some volunteer work, I'd definitely say that's a good place to start. It's also run by a very capable leader in Brennan Settles. He's currently the head of the ambassador program over at Super League. If you don't know about the ambassador program at Super League, he manages basically ambassadors in all major metropolitan areas in the US to be hosting esports events. So that's pretty incredible. All right. Um, that's about everything for me. Do y'all have any questions about starting an esports career? This is something that we'll be revisiting with a lot of our guests about how they got started and how we'll be moving forward, or like how they're moving forward and what they like to see from new people coming into the industry. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. We'll give you a couple of minutes. There we go. Yeah, it looks like they still have a decent amount of positions still up. And if you want my old job, the strategic partnerships department needs you as a sponsorship manager. The required knowledge and skills aren't huge. literally just how to use Microsoft Office, basic marketing principles, uh, having sold things before. Your link wasn't showing up to me. It looked like it was killed. But yeah. All right. I think that's going to conclude all of it for me. I'm going to jump back into the waiting room for a second with anyone that's there to take any additional questions they may have over talking or over voice. Hello.
Hello.
Oh my.
What? Yeah,
You have a
your
very
mic
large,
is
loud fan. Okay, I've muted him. Peyton, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, bud.
All right. Thank y'all for coming by. I appreciate it. We'll be going through Twitch for a while. I'm going to continue playing with this format. If you have any questions or suggestions for next week's stream, let me know. Share this with your friends if you think they'd enjoy it. And yeah, thank you so much. Hope to see you next week. Bye.
All right, later. Have a good night.